Good day to you. Last night my wife decided to buy some concert tickets for she and my daughter. The band is 21 Pilots, and so she went on to pretty much the only game in town, which is Ticketmaster. Of course, there are lots of secondary sites that sell concert tickets, like StubHub, but Ticketmaster pretty much has a monopoly on the early release of tickets. So she bought a ticket, and guess what? This morning, there's an email in my email, because that was what was associated with the credit card purchase. And the email is trying to let me know that there are tickets for ZZ Top, a really great classic rock band, blues band out of Texas. And these tickets are going on sale, and Ticketmaster wants to let me know about that. That is a form of what the book calls push marketing. Push marketing, where the organization that's seeking to advertise is pushing out content to me, trying to get me to make a purchase. And that's what this chapter is about. It's about social media marketing, and advertising is one component of marketing, which we'll define a little bit later in the video lecture. And so as we take on this chapter, the first concept is whether advertising is mostly information or persuasion. I personally think this is kind of a silly question. Of course advertising is persuasion. It's trying to persuade you to purchase something above and all else. Information is just one step on the way to get to persuasion. Of course, people do seek to learn from ads information. If they watch a car commercial, they want to know how many miles per gallon that car gets, and they're getting information from about. But overwhelmingly, the main purpose is to advertise and to persuade. Okay, now let's go on to the backside of that push style of marketing, where the company is actually pushing out content to try and let me know about a product or service. The opposite is pull marketing. Pull marketing is where you seek out information. You go to the website. You're looking at a health supplement. So you go to a website and you read all about it, and you read what the dangers are and the costs are and where you can get it cheaply. You're the one who's initiating the communication. That's pull marketing. Now we're going to talk about the different types of the way that money is spent, shall we say, when advertising takes place on social media. When you go onto Facebook and you see all those sponsored links on the right-hand side, when you go onto any web page at poconorecord.com, or any web page that you're looking for and you see an ad, where is the money coming from? Who's it going to? How is the advertising being covered? That's what we're going to talk about now. And the first kind of advertising is paid advertising. That's where the company buys space. In the traditional media world, television, radio, magazines, and TVs, a company like Coca-Cola will hire an ad agency, and that ad agency will say, okay, we want to get to these kinds of people. We want to market Coke's net zero Coke, which has 0 calories. We want to get to people who are health conscious. So what radio stations do those people listen to? What TV stations do they watch? What newspapers do they read? What magazines do they read? And that advertising agency will go out and make buys. They will buy a page worth of space in magazines. They will buy a 30-second advertisement on radio. They will buy sponsored links on social media. That's paid advertising. The second kind of advertising is owned advertising, and that's where the company has its own distribution channel. Facebook advertises itself. Fox News advertises itself. It owns its own channel. So when you're watching Fox News, you'll see coming up at 8 o'clock, the Bill O'Reilly Factor, the O'Reilly Factor. That's a talk show that's on at 8 o'clock on Fox News. It can advertise that at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. And the same goes for social media. Social media can advertise itself. Twitter can advertise itself. It's owned advertising. And then there is earned advertising. Earned advertising is where a third party decides to cover you. And that's the best kind of advertising you can get because it's free. I shouldn't say that it's the best because you don't have control over it all the time, but it certainly is the most cost effective. It's been estimated that in the primary season, for example, Donald Trump received $1.2 billion of free advertising because of all the TV talk shows that had him on, all the programs where he was allowed to phone in and talk about issues. And so this is a great example, I think, of earned media advertising. He didn't have to pay for it. The company didn't purchase it. Whatever TV station he was on didn't purchase it. It was other news organizations were deciding to cover him. Now, ultimately, what companies are trying to get you as a consumer to do on social media is to go through the purchase funnel. The purchase funnel starts out with awareness. It's letting you know about a product. Either you're looking for sneakers, and maybe you want, you didn't know about Air Jordans for whatever reason. Maybe you're a young kid, and now all of a sudden you see an Air Jordan advertised on, let's say Facebook. You're having awareness. That's the first step of the funnel. The second step is opinion. Now you're starting to form an opinion about, wow, they look cool, they look nice, I like the way they feel, probably. I haven't tried them on yet, but I'm starting to form opinions. That's the second step in the funnel process. And you want to picture here that you're being funneled down into making a purchase. Your mind is being funneled through that. Thirdly is consideration. You have an opinion, now you're considering purchase. You're looking at your bank account, you're looking at when you would use the sneakers, you're considering other brands, but you're mainly focused on Air Jordan, you're still considering. Then comes preference. You start to look at what colors do you want, what style, do you want to purchase 2 pairs? You're starting to indicate your preference. And then finally you reach the bottom of that funnel where you go on through and make the purchase, and that is the purchase itself. That's the final step in the funnel. Another form of marketing / advertising on social media is called search advertising. That's where companies pay to have their links come up when you do a search on Google or Bing or whatever you do. If you search for Volkswagen as a car, as the book points out, companies aren't normally paying for that because that's going to come up automatically. But if you search for Volkswagen TDI, that's the diesel version of Volkswagen. I don't know why you'd be searching for that, because right now Volkswagen has been accused of cheating emissions tests for its diesel engines. But at any rate, that's something that a company like Volkswagen would pay for as a sponsored link so that it comes up. Now, moving on next to the next concept in the book is word of mouth. Before I get into this, I once remember reading a newspaper article in Britain, in a very prestigious newspaper called The Guardian. And this newspaper talked about the new way of advertising is going to be no longer are you going to advertise on television, radio, TV, and even in social media, because the person who's pitching the product to you is somebody you don't really know. Okay, yeah, they're a celebrity, or yeah, they're somebody who's famous for another reason, or yeah, they're a medical expert. But most people make purchases because they see what their friends and their family are doing and wearing, and they like that, and so they want to do the same. So this article that I read in The Guardian talked about how the new form of advertising is going to be to pay a person to go into a bar, for example, and to strike up a conversation with the person next to them. And they're going to be very specifically wearing a certain watch, they're going to be wearing a certain shirt, they're going to be ordering a certain kind of drink. And the idea is that the person that they're talking to will notice the things that person is purchasing, and they'll be turned on to it as well and make the purchase as well. It's very interesting. It's basically word of mouth advertising. That's what we're talking about here. Word of mouth advertising. That's the best kind of advertising you can get, is when people talk about your product or service on their own, and other people notice that those people are talking about it, especially on social media. As you watch comments, posts, shares, likes, etc., you're starting to see what other people, not the company, other people within your trusted friend and follower network, what they're purchasing. And there are 3 dimensions of word of mouth publishing. One is what is known as the valence, and this is the overall positivity or negativity of the comments. Right now, I'm staying in a hotel in Atlantic City, little getaway with my family. It's the Claridge Hotel. When I went to purchase this hotel, I went on to hotels.com and I looked at reviews of the hotels. And I didn't want to pay a lot, but this hotel stuck out to me. It was a 3-star, and most of the comments were good. They're talking about the spaciousness of the rooms. They're talking about how close the hotel is to the beach. They're talking about how the service is generally nice. Sure, you had some people making complaints about, we couldn't get our bathtub to drain, or when we walked in, the beds weren't made, or the towels smelled. These kinds of comments were on there too, but the overall valence of all of these word-of-mouth comments was positive. The next dimension of word-of-mouth advertising is the variance. And the variance is the similarity of the reviews that are out there. So are people constantly talking about, there's a great breakfast that's served. Great breakfast. Enjoyed the breakfast. Love the breakfast. That's variance, the similarity of word-of-mouth comments. And then finally is the volume of comments. If you've ever gone on to look at reviews of something, you can only find 2 or 3 people who had reviewed a product, and yeah, they may have been positive or they may have been negative, but there's just not enough for you to feel as though this product has been really tried and tested. That's the volume. Now, what companies generally are trying to avoid is a phenomenon called a firestorm. You can probably figure out what that is. That's where there's a sudden discharge of negative messages, as was the case for Fox News last week. Fox News is was managed by Roger Ailes. He was the company president, AILES, Roger Ailes. And all of a sudden, he has a lot of sexual harassment accusations going on in one particular lawsuit. And so this firestorm that kept coming out in media, because other media started covering it, it was a total discharge of negative information. He was in the news almost every single day, and eventually he ended up resigning. We're talking about one of the most powerful media corporate executives there is, if maybe not the most powerful. I mean, Fox News has a lot of influence and sway on politics, and he resigned after all those years. So that was a firestorm, and that's something that you want to avoid, obviously. All right, now we're going to finish up with the difference between advertising and marketing. Many people consider them to be the same, or they don't really know what the difference is. Advertising is communication with customers. It's where you're trying to let the customer know about your product, and that's the information side of it, and hopefully get them to purchase the product. It's just communication with customers. Marketing is much bigger. Marketing is not only communicating with customers, but it's serving their needs. It's after they purchase and receive the product, it's seeing if they want to get a hold of a warranty plan. It's answering any questions about installation of the product or anything about getting the product to work. It's following up with the customer afterwards to see if they're satisfied with the product use, and then maybe trying to parlay that into another purchase. So marketing is a much broader umbrella to approach this subject matter. And that's going to do it for today. Have a great day.